But thank you for joining. And this session is going to look like this. So we were going to have an update first from Andy Clark, chair of the Colorado Grain Chain, from his latest trip up to the Bread Lab that was a focus on whole grain integration. And so we thought that it would be great to start us all out on this, on a synopsis that Andy could share with us from his recent, very inspirational trip and work with the Bread Lab and many other bakeries and bakers. And then we would like to give the 4 bakeries a chance to tell us their story. And you can do this with screen shares if you have any things to share, or simply talk. Everybody gets about 7 minutes. And then we have a list of questions prepared, and we also invite everyone here in the audience to ask questions. And the main topic is really, obviously, the role of bakeries in the community and how to build a bakery in a community. And so we hope that we can get to the gist of it as we're asking the questions. But Andy, take it away first with your synopsis from your travel to the Bread Lab, Washington State University.
Thanks, Nana.
Thank you.
And I'll start by saying, how honored I am to be here with Nana specifically. My hair. Hold on a second. I've seen many of the folks on the call at Grain School in past years, and if you've been there, you know how much it has changed and allowed us to grow as bakers and community people and farmers and food people and activists. And I just want to say thanks, Nana, for all of your hard work. I met Dr. Stephen Jones at Grain School 3 or 4 years ago, and I had known of him for a long time and heard about him, and I just had never really made the time to take a trip out to Skagit Valley, Washington. And I finally did about a month ago, 3 weeks ago. He extended yet another invitation to come out and hang out and sort of play in his lab. And the analogy I've been using is sort of like if you were a musician and somebody said, hey, come to my world-class studio that has every instrument in the world and bring all of your favorite musicians and just, I don't know, pick up a guitar or banjo and think about writing a song together. But instead of, studio instruments, there were any number of flour mills and seed cleaners and dough mixers and ovens and most importantly, ingredients, wheat, rye, spelt, barley. Those were our main ingredients. We all brought some ingredients from home that we were passionate about. I brought something I'm very proud of, Colorado corn, as well as spelt from the San Luis Valley of Colorado, as well as, what else did I bring? Some lentils from Timeless, not from Colorado, from, I think is that Idaho? Timeless?
No, Montana.
Montana.
And the spelt would be from Tyler Wilbanks.
Tyler Wilbanks, who plants and harvests spelt using horsepower. The real horsepower.
Not in the San Luis Valley, right? In southwestern Colorado. He's near Mancos. Yeah.
Mancos. And yeah, so we all went out there with our little ingredients from home and our little ideas and thousands of varieties of grain that Dr. Jones has been working on for, I want to say 40 years, for his whole life anyway. And I had a complete epiphany. It was similar to what happened when I attended Grain School for the first time. And the epiphany here was related to newer wheat breeding techniques, and how Dr. Jones and what Dr. Jones is doing is breeding wheat for place. So he looks at the region of the world or of America where the wheat's going to be planted, and he selects wheat varieties and breeds wheat varieties to be tolerant to the conditions of that place. So for Colorado, it would be primarily about drought tolerance, or maybe not lodging and blowing over the wind, maybe certain other attributes. For Vermont, if you was growing wheat or breeding wheat for Vermont, maybe it would be about fungus and mold. And he also breeds for yield. So, he has a belief that I follow as well, not now after spending time with him, that if you're gonna till the soil and you're gonna plant wheat, would it not make sense to maximize the yield potential of that acre? And there are a lot of varieties of wheat that taste great, look great, are great, but they just have, maybe a 20 to 30 bushel per acre yield, which is not, great. But if grown under, regenerative practices, organic, non-petrochemical input systems, maybe that's okay. Well, his wheat is organic and can be grown any way you want, regeneratively speaking, and can yield 4 or 5 times that. So, that's, he feels it's his responsibility to promote wheats that, work well in place, are high yielding, and have the attributes that the end user is looking for in terms of flavor, terroir, texture, most importantly, baking performance or brewing performance, or whatever the end use goal is. He's also been playing around with isolating the gene for color. So we baked with some purple and blue wheats that were just stunning. I mean, absolutely stunning. So not only were we able to bake a 100% whole wheat ciabatta or pita or pizza or pan loaf or freeform artisan loaf, but the pore structure was, Instagram worthy if you care about that sort of thing, which I urge you not to. I beg you not to. But if you do, and you like really big open pores and all sorts of cool, sexy crumb, this is your huckleberry. But, it's blue or purple. He has a perennial wheat that is called Salish Blue, and it is nearly the same size as a standard wheat berry, rather than being, sort of undersized, small, kernel. It's big and plump, and it bakes up really strong. We made a 100% perennial wheat loaf that was shockingly high performance. So yeah, Nana, any things that you'd like for me to kind of cover in the Steve Jones world beyond that?
Let's see. What about 3 outcomes from that meeting?
I can give you 33 outcomes. One.
No, just 3.
Okay. This isn't related to wheat, but I think it's related about what we're going to get into here as a group. The top outcome for me was, and I was the conspirator who collected this group of bakers, and I called people and emailed people from across the world and said, hey, will you come play bread with me in Washington? And it was community, far and away. We were so tight after 4 or 5 days together. We were hugging and singing and dancing. It was wacky. And I am now in regular contact with those folks, daily. Sarah Owens just sent me a care package of, I'll show it to you, of some of the most amazing foods that she makes. Let's see here. This is like a little snippet of Sarah Owens' kitchen. And yeah, so community would be the first thing, or relationship. Second would be the courage. You're gonna like this, Nana. The courage to bake with 100% whole grain and have really powerful outcomes from a texture, flavor, loaf density standpoint. Completely renewed my faith that not only can we make really, nutrient dense whole grain items, but they can be really appealing to more of a mass market. And then number 3, Sarah Owens makes a sprouted fermented spelt cookie that will blow your, knock your socks off. So with walnut and chocolate chunks and flake salt. And it's a multi-day refrigerator ferment. So you just put, I want to say 10% starter on flour weight into your otherwise pretty standard cookie recipe, whole grain, ultra fine spelt cookie recipe. And you let it sit in your fridge for 2, 3, 4, 5 days, do nothing. It's scooped, it's in balls, and then you pull it and bake it. And what you get is this enhanced digestibility and flavor. As it reaches the 4th, 5th day, you start to get a pronounced sour flavor. But if you want it to be more subtle, you take it at day 2 or 3.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, I think that is a great lead into, the journeys of the 4 bakers we have with us. And why don't we start with Pam, Kulina Lani farm, because she was initially, I didn't see that you were here, but I wanted to make sure that we see you and welcome. And I think what we'd like to do now is just to give everyone about 7 minutes to tell their story, their bread stories, their bakery story. So why don't you start out, Pam?
Okay. Should I hit any certain button or just stay the way I am right now? Can you hear me? Okay?
Are you speaking only, no visuals?
I can see me, and I'm on speaking and visual as far as I can tell.
Okay, that's good. Yep, that's perfect.
And I see you have somebody there. Is that your kitty? So that's precious. Just a little bit about Kulina Lani. My husband and I are native from Colorado. We had an insane opportunity to move to Hawaii back in 2014. He has been a organic farmer. We were farming organic corn in northern Colorado when we had an opportunity to move to Hawaii. And so we bought a small farm there, and we named it Kulina Lani because Kulina means corn or grain of the cob in Hawaiian. And Lani always means either heavenly or from heaven. So I've been a baker for a very long time. I'm one of those folks that was lucky enough to be raised with sourdough. It's been in my family for generations. I actually had an opportunity to work at what used to be Rocky Mountain Milling in Platteville. It's now owned by Bay State Milling. I worked in the lab. I did all their specialty breads. I've also baked for hotel chains and breweries and all kinds of different places around Colorado. So when we went over to Hawaii, I really wasn't sure I would be doing much baking other than for my family. But we made some good friends, a couple of chefs, a married couple, and they wanted to open their own gourmet grilled cheese outfit and couldn't find any decent bread. So we offered to make some samples, and they said that would be great. And that exponentially blew up into ultimately what became being in resorts, restaurants, coffee shops, grocery stores, 2 farmers markets. And we quickly outgrew our space, which was originally a 3-car garage on our farm. And we were in the process of looking for a larger bakery, kind of sensing a move was afoot. We didn't really know what direction. Long story short, we felt like the right thing to do was to actually come to Grand Junction. My family is here. I'm from here. I was born in Paonia. So for me, it was like coming back home. And it's been a tremendous blessing. We're able to support my parents, which were significantly in need. And this community has very much welcomed us here. We have felt like we're significantly meeting a need. And we kept our name because we wanted to honor the people of Hawaii who so much embraced us and keep that connection. We have people that live here that vacation on the big island of Hawaii. So now that they can't get our bread when they're there, they can get our bread here. So there's a start.
That's wonderful. Thank you, Pam.
Do you want to know like what we offer or that kind of thing?
Maybe let's go around the room. This was a great start, and then we can go to that because the menu is a topic. Yeah. So let's see. Should we go to Ismail from Reunion?
Hi. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay. First time using Zoom, so don't have a lot of experience with this. Yeah, so big honor to be with all of you guys. It's amazing. Especially I'm very jealous of Andy. He does an amazing job. He knows I'm a big admirer.
I'm jealous of you, and you know it. So,
we are a little bakery, little hole in the wall bakery in the heart of the city of Denver, and what you can call the, I don't know, like the art district of Denver called Rhino. This is a bakery that, we focus on a lot of laminated pastries of all sorts, and obviously a lot of sourdough. We started out almost 4 years ago now. And myself, I was born in Portugal, hence the little accent I have, and I was raised in Venezuela, and by Portuguese parents, and with a lot of this European culture. So I have this interesting, if you will, mix of the European and the South American. And that's, if you ever go to our bakery, you're going to see that, put into our product. You're going to see pastries that are very European mixed with South American flavors. Yeah, we, I guess, for 4 years, I haven't been able to. I'm a very picky baker, and I'm a very picky baker in terms of what Andy just called Instagram worthy everything. So I like when food tastes amazing but also looks amazing. And because of that, I've been focusing a lot on, having a product that is as consistent as I can, and not maybe as nutritious or as I focus our attention into getting flour that has certain things that I'm looking for in terms, so I can get a certain result. But just lately, I'm more and more interested into what this whole movement is. I think some of the bread I've had that's made with local flour is just way better than anything we can make with just super processed, very refined flour. in our sourdoughs, I use some of the guys from Washington that mill flour for us, but hopefully very soon we can transition into some more local and whole grain flours. I don't have a ton of experience with this. My background is in food. I went to culinary school 10 years ago and slowly worked my way into bakeries and worked with bakeries here and there, and had a few mentors where I learned mostly pastry, a lot of the pastry world, and then a few mentors where I learned some of the bread world. But hopefully, I mean, this whole thing of me coming here and talking to us and maybe hearing from you guys makes a difference for us as well in our bakery. And yeah, we don't have a ton of variety of product in our offering, so you're expected to see what I consider to be a great sourdough and laminated pastries, and we just try to make them as best we can with the best we can find from all over the place. Sadly, I'm the one bringing flour from Italy, or bringing flour from Washington. It's a very not environmentally friendly to do stuff, right? But it's just how we do it. Yeah, we'd like to hear more from you guys. Again, it's a big honor. Yeah, that's Reunion. That's our little bakery right now.
Well, Ismael, it's wonderful to have you here. And I just want to say, it's not really about where you're going and what you're doing. And you make some of the best bread I've ever had in my life, and pastry as well, with an amazing crew, and you're doing everything right. And we had a lot of fun when we were incorporating some local grain into our holiday projects. And, there's no shame. Nobody even, I get to speak for myself. I didn't even know I could make bread, let alone good bread, with grain from local farm. It just wasn't even in my realm of consciousness until somewhat recently. So we all sort of get here at our own time, and it's going to be super fun doing great stuff as we go.
Yeah.
Forward, right.
Yeah. Yeah. I love it. I'm in for the ride as well.
Yeah. It's also, something to say about cultural influences. And when I see the pastel nata that you have on your menu, then if anybody knows how difficult these are traditionally made, then there's an appreciation for these types of things too, and they're culturally relevant. So
yeah.
Thanks for contributing the Portuguese Venezuelan influence to Colorado. So thank you for being here. Let's switch to the San Luis Valley, Monte Vista, and tumbleweed bread with Jessica and Jake. Thanks for joining.
Yeah, thank you, Nana. It's really nice to be here and see everybody. We're in a much more rural area, so we just don't see a lot of other people, to be honest. Yeah. But yeah, I'm Jessica Lariva. I started baking in Portland, Oregon. I don't know how many years ago, 10 years ago, about. And in 2017, I moved back to the San Luis Valley, which is where I grew up for the most part, though I was born in Hawaii, Pam. I was born on Kauai. So I've been following you for a while because baking in Hawaii.
I love what you do. I've been following you too.
Thank you. Yeah. So in 2017, I moved back to the San Luis Valley to take care of my mom with Parkinson's. And so I was in a really weird position where I couldn't really work out of the home because she needed so much care. And so I just decided to start baking out of my home. And we have the Colorado Cottage Foods Act here in Colorado. And it was such a great thing for us to be able to bake out of the home. So in 2018, I kind of officially started selling in the little tiny pop-ups in like a feed mill is where I first started. So I had a lot of farmers and ranchers coming by, and a bookstore and a coffee shop, and mostly pop-ups as a cottage foods bakery. And we've grown a little bit, like every year growing a little bit. And then just the past couple of years, we've really expanded. We bought a building here in Monte Vista, which is about 15 minutes away from Alamosa, the kind of main hub of the San Luis Valley. And we've been at farmers markets for a while.
Yeah. We did the Monte Vista and Alamosa Farmers Market last year. And basically I moved back here to help Jess, help her with home stuff, and, ended up helping with the business. So the baker is Jess. I kind of do the behind the scenes stuff, run the market, etc. But we have a really unique situation down here. We have a lot of local grain. What are the variety? What do we have right now?
Oh, well, we have
hard red,
soft white,
hard
white, emmer,
buckwheat,
Rouge de Bordeaux, Yacora Rojo, Sonora, 2 different kinds of rye. Just in the San Luis Valley.
And we have access to pretty much all of it. And we've been Jess has been kind of slowly over the years changing the recipes to go away from a more refined flour to include more whole grain, partially because we didn't want to suddenly change, the formulas, because the customers are very used to a particular thing, and it's worked. And even at the farmers markets, it's pretty incredible to see. Once someone has been going for a considerable amount of time, they tend to gravitate toward the whole grain loaves. I might have told them it's whole grain, whatever. They don't probably know. They just love the flavor. And one thing that we've come across time and time again at the markets, talking to customers, kids love whole grain fermented bread. It's crazy. They just devour it. So we actually recently started reaching out to schools, and one of our current projects is we are building a farm to school collaboration with one of our local schools. And we've had some preliminary meetings and whatnot, but we're going to be doing, they have biscuits, whole grain biscuits that they get shipped in from God knows where. So we have a local hard white that just has been kind of slowly refining the recipe, but this is the biscuit that's whole grain. And it is unbelievably tasty, just as is. And we are really excited to be able to kind of introduce this sort of nutrition into the local school. Obviously, that's a big deal. For me personally, and I know for Jess, but I'm going to speak for myself for a second. For me personally, if I'm going to go down this road of being a baker, because I'm kind of learning that too, I feel obligated to make sure that the food I produce, or the food we produce, is healthy. It promotes good health, nourishment, et cetera, et cetera. And a quick story from one of our farmers markets, we would have people come in from time to time, and they would just be basically drooling, looking at everything and be like, you can buy it if you want. Oh no, we can't do that. I'm gluten intolerant. I can't, this won't work for me. I just really love bread and I really wish I could have it. And I would tell them, well, thing is, I'm also extremely gluten intolerant. I buy anything with refined flour or a dab of sugar, and I bloat and I get a headache, and, that could last for some time. And I'm usually point them to our Mountain Mama loaf, which is made with 100% hard red, unrefined stone ground wheat that is fermented and baked. So a classic sourdough, just made with whole grain. And I got a few people to try it. And in one case, an elderly couple came back and they were in tears. They said, we didn't think we'd ever be able to eat bread again. And they started buying like 3 or 4 loaves a week from us because they were just devouring it. And they said they didn't feel a single thing. And, I'm not a scientist, I'm not a dietitian or anything like that. But based on experience, listening to my customers, my own personal experience, there's just something about obviously the fermentation, but also using whole unrefined grain. There's something about it. I can't point to the actual science because I'm just not qualified for that, but there is something about it. And it just allows people to eat bread and feel good afterward, which is like so unique here in America. But that's kind of where we're at.
Yeah. So just very recently, we're kind of committing to transitioning to 100% whole grain, which is
tricky.
Is a bit frightening, to be honest. But honestly, it's easier to get whole grain flour here, or just grain, and we have a mock mill, than it is to get white flour. So just in a weird rural pocket,
just so happens
it's a lot easier to get whole grain flour.
And
so we're gonna do that.
From our customers, they also love it.
Yeah.
They love it. The big purchases tend to be large purchases of whole grain breads for families. And the way we look at it, if we can make food that will support them, that's very accessible, more inexpensive than the bread at the grocery store. Oftentimes, like our Mount Mama is cheaper than the sourdough whole grain bread at the supermarket, at Safeway here in town. It's just unbelievably silly. But anyways, that's kind of what we're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's great to hear, and wonderful work. And it's really true. The San Luis Valley is quite a grain chain. And so we are coming with Grainsco in the Field to the San Luis Valley in July 23rd to 24th, for everyone's knowledge, to experience, that quite coherent grain chain up there. So thanks for that introduction. And last but not least, for sure, is Hearth with Matt. Hearth in Denver. Welcome.
Oh, thank you, Nana. It's really an honor, as Ishmael said, to be here amongst all these different bakers, and among who I consider a mentor, and Andy. And I've been to a few grain schools before. I think the last one that you guys did in person, I was there for, and it is such a fun event, and I'm so excited to be a part of it in any form that it takes. So Hearth is right now has taken like kind of many iterations over the course of its like fairly short lifespan. But right now we are primarily focused on being a wholesale bakery. We do coffee shop pastries and then sourdough bread for a few restaurants in town that mostly focus on like toasts and a lot of avocado toast. So that's kind of what we're doing at the moment. I started baking in college. I went to school in Colorado Springs. I had always known I wanted to be involved in kind of the food world in some aspect. Throughout high school, I worked in restaurants, and that culture, like the nighttime line cook stuff, wasn't really for me. So when I found baking and I found sourdough bread, I was instantly hooked. And from that point on, I abandoned my history degree, which has been so valuable. And I went to San Francisco and I attended the San Francisco Baking Institute. And I was there for probably 6 months, and then I baked there for a while. And that's actually where I met Andy. And I essentially begged him for a job. And I moved back to Colorado. I really miss being around the mountains, and San Francisco is lovely, but it's not a place where I really felt like truly at home. It was too much of a city for me. So I moved back, and my kind of whole grain awakening and my heirloom grain awakening was like the moment I walked into Moxie. They have like the moment I tasted the bread, and the mill was just kind of like shaking in the corner in the bake room. There was like flour in the air, and it like was the coolest thing I had ever seen in my life. And just the passion and like drive to make things taste better, be better for customers. It really kind of changed the way that I looked at bread and kind of food in general. So I worked at Moxie for a year or two in the pastry department, and I did a little bit of bread here and there. And then the pandemic hit, and I really did a reevaluation of like where I was at in my life, and I was either going to commit to baking or like kind of go my own like kind of way and figure out something else. But if I was going to commit to it, then I was going to try to do the best I could to work for myself, have like awesome employees, have an environment that people love to work in. And then I'm like so dedicated. And this is all because of Andy and Grain School and everything I had experienced at Moxie, to utilize as much like locally raised and grown wheat as possible for the health of our customers, for the environmental health of kind of this beautiful, beautiful state. And then we're really lucky to be in a place that is kind of a breadbasket. So just taking advantage of the fact that wheat does grow here fairly well. It has grown here in the past. And yeah, and that's kind of it. We have had a little interesting journey because of COVID. We found a building that we were really stoked on in Denver, and we wanted it to be like a mill, a bakery, and a place where people could come and just see how the grain was going from the wheat berries to the loaf in like one place. That has changed because of COVID, and Denver is a tough city to get things approved. And the building, it turns out, was structurally unsound, so it's now condemned. But we're still working kind of towards that goal of having a retail frontage in Denver so that we can try to spread the word and be able to tell people about where their food's coming from, where their bread's coming from. And that's a really hard thing to do. And I know Ishmael does a little bit of wholesale as well, but it's super hard when you're wholesaling stuff exclusively to really like convey to people how much work and effort and the quality of the product that's actually going into what they're buying, and why our loaf is so much more expensive than another loaf, or why our croissants have little like flecks in them, and why they're a little more whole wheaty. But yeah, that's kind of what we're doing.
That's very interesting. Yeah, that wholesale question. Thanks, Matt, for that great introduction. And I think I'm going to pass it on now to Andy as we're going a little deeper into the conversation around your operations.
Yeah. Thanks, Donna.
Yeah.
What a super amazing group of bakers. Thanks for being here tonight, this afternoon. I wish we were in a room together hanging out. I wish we were at Grain School getting ready to have dinner together and spend a night listening to Bob Quinn play Bob Dylan music in my hotel room, but we're not. Here we are. So nice to be in community with you guys tonight. So, Nana and I were talking about what this panel would look like and how to serve the highest purpose with you guys and your time. And I think there's a few components to opening a bakery that we'd like to kind of unpack a little bit. One of them being, why did you open your bakery, and what homework did you do before you opened it, and part of what I'm hoping for is a bit of a cautionary tale, or maybe an exercise in really doing your homework, because here you guys are. And Matt, I'm really, really sorry to hear that your building got condemned. I did not know that. That'll be part of your story, and probably a very informative, aspect of your story. And we'll take you back any day you want. So if you want to take a hiatus while the building gets uncondemned, let me know. But I've opened my own bakery, and it was a thing. It was like having a baby, and I'd love to hear from you guys, what that journey looked like. Why are you so crazy that you actually decided to open a bakery? Has it been different than you expected? And what were the big lessons that you've learned? Is there anything that you can sort of offer up that might be a morsel for the next traveler along the way to pick up? And really, anybody can jump in who has something to say on that topic now.
I could respond to that.
Awesome, Pam. Nice to see you.
Thank you. Good to see you too, Andy. We had we really weren't going to do another farmer's market. We had done that, got the t-shirt on that one and decided we were ready to take a big break from that. And we had joined forces with the small business incubator kitchen here in Grand Junction, and they just did a phenomenal job of not only providing kitchen space for us to use in order to service our wholesale accounts. Just even by word of mouth, we had 3 wholesale accounts before we even opened our bakery. And the director at the SBDC kitchen said, no, you really need to do the farmer's market. And we kind of dug our heels in on it. And she said, no, you really need to do the farmer's market. And I knew that there were other home bakers that were making sourdough and selling it at the market. And I just really didn't want to horn in on their business. And I just was really not sure. She was so right. She knew exactly what she was saying. And we were able to network with so many other co-vendors and business people, as well as make our customer base. So when we went to open the bakery here, we had an entire summer, an entire farmer's market season to say, the bakery's coming, the bakery's coming. And it got to a point where people were even saying, well, what's going on this week? Did you get your permit yet? And we made relationship that way. So when we did open the bakery, we had a customer base that was ready to come and see what we had going on. And it was also during that time, and we could sure talk about this later in another topic if you want to, but it was also during that time that we had farmers stopping by our booth saying, I'm so-and-so from such and such farm, and we farm this and we do that. And our name includes organic in the name. So we had a lot of people coming up saying, we grow, we're from Crawford, Colorado, and we grow organic Rouge de Bordeaux or Sonora, and we're from Hotchkiss, and we grow Jefferson whole wheat organic, and we're from, that's where we actually met April and Tyler Wilbanks out of the Cortez area, Mancos area. And of course, we're using their spelt now as well. But just having that farmer's market experience and building your customer base, when you get into your space, which is truly like having a baby, and it was hard, it was so worthwhile, and everybody celebrated with us. Anybody else want to chime in on that?
Thanks, Pam. Thanks for sharing. The farmer's market piece, especially, I feel like that's like the bat light in the sky, where it just connects you to, the folks that you want to feed, the farmers that want to feed you. And it's just such a fertile place. Sometimes they can be tricky, a lot of rules and regs and policies and sometimes politics, but worth every bit of effort. Jessica, you look like you have something in your mind.
Yeah.
Got the crazy eye.
Yeah.
Yeah, no. So we've had a really interesting sort of road of starting the bakery and growing the bakery, just because we're in such a weird rural area.
Huge area.
Yeah. So we're a collection of many counties and many small little towns with kind of a main hub town of Alamosa,
Which we're not in.
But I did pop-ups, throughout a bunch of different little towns when I first started. And the farmers market has been also really good for us. It's kind of been our main store, if you will, as a cottage foods bakery for the most part. But when we bought our little derelict building, which maybe should have been condemned, to be honest, and we did not know how much work was going to need to be put into it. And I don't think we would have bought it.
Insane amount of work.
Like dead squirrels in the walls, sort of thing.
Yeah.
But so we've been very slowly renovating that, but also having some, challenges with getting to an actual retail point, partially because the building itself does not have a bathroom. And you can't really be a retail space here without a bathroom.
ADA approved.
Yeah, ADA, accessible, approved for a renovated building. So we've been operating still as a cottage foods bakery out of kind of our private kitchen there. And we just started wholesale, or we're starting wholesale. So I'd love to hear more about wholesale from the rest of the bakers. But also, it's been a bit of a challenge to figure out what our customers want in terms of
accessibility.
Yeah, accessibility, because where we are in Monte Vista, because we're not in the hub, and we're also not right kind of in the downtown area.
And we don't have a retail front. But we do mostly pre-order and pick up and delivery, actually, throughout the whole San Luis Valley. But it's been a bit of a challenge because people love the farmers market. It's right downtown Alamosa, but then trying to kind of get people to come by during our window of time, at the bakery for cottage food sales is a very different animal. And partially, we're trying to think of different times that might be better for people. People do love delivery, but that's also a huge commitment for the region we live in, with so many miles just traversed. And we're using still our personal little car here, kind of growing pains, where we have to roll down the window and then, reach outside the window and open it because it's kind of old.
So, we're just in this kind of interesting space of growth and trying to figure out, which way do we really want to go? Do we want to take out more loans to go the retail route? Because that's a lot. That's a lot of loans. And we took out some loans to buy the bakery in the first place, that building. So we're in a little bit of a creative problem solving point right now with a lot of change. And I think that's especially why I'm very interested to be on this panel today, to kind of hear from other bakers.
What I can add is, if you're thinking of opening a bakery, get a building that has a licensed kitchen already in it. Don't try to build one yourself. It sucks. It's so much work. And there's so many little intricacies. If it's already been established as a licensed kitchen and has a history, they come in, oh yeah, it looks clean, cool. You're open, you're good. If it is new and you're building it, and they'll be aware of that, the inspectors will be aware of that. That's a county by county basis, usually the inspectors, sometimes state inspector, depending on the license. But you are going to be under the magnifying lens, and you need everything just so. And it's been unbelievably difficult. Just don't do it. Just find a place that already has a kitchen in it. Just do that. Or, if you have the funds, have it professionally built. Don't try to build it yourself. But the other part about all of this is, being that we're in a massive geographical area, with our delivery, I do the delivery driving. There's days that I'm out 7 hours delivering bread. I'll log over 400 miles delivering bread in one day. And it's just what we have to do. So when we're talking about opening a bakery, set your ego aside and just do what you got to do. If this is what you want to do, find somewhere that has a kitchen, open your bakery, and then do what you got to do to make sure it's available to your population, because they're going to benefit. If you're making really good bread here, especially if you're sourcing local grain, it's a win-win all the way around, especially for the customer. And it's worth the effort then. And they appreciate it.
That's
Yeah.
huge. I feel like there was many morsels in that. And,
Yeah.
and a lot of that resonates with me a lot. It's interesting because, you can get into a place that has been a licensed food facility, get signed off, and then start messing with stuff. Start moving sinks, start plugging in flour mills that may be scary for the inspectors or whatever. But yeah, no, find a place that has 4 drains, 3 compartment sink, has been some type of food establishment. Save yourself headaches and a couple $100,000.
I would like to second that.
Yeah.
I think that the things that I didn't really contemplate when I was like opening the bakery is I knew I could make a croissant. I knew I could make a loaf of bread, but I didn't look at zoning. I didn't really think about the different types of like bureaucracy that you have to go through. And I think it's just been, at least in my experience in the last 2 years, has been made much worse, and it become slower and slower and slower. As at least the city of Denver is dealing with like crazy shortages and inspectors and staff. It's insane. I think we had to establish a zoning use permit, or we had to change our zoning for our original kind of planned bakery. And that took a full year for them to even like get to it. And by that point you get kind of stuck. I mean, you're a full year of your like lease is up, and you lose a lot of your opportunity costs. So those are the things that like I would kind of implore somebody to really look at, because like now we have a really great space, but I'm driving, one of the reasons I left Moxie is because I loved Denver and I didn't like driving up to Louisville, but now I'm driving out to like the airport and it's like the same thing. So yeah, definitely second generation kitchen spaces are huge and like will save you so much time and money.
I think it definitely saved us a lot of time moving into a space that had a kitchen. However, I know that we are the only space in this entire town that has a deck oven. And moving in a 4-deck deck oven with steam injection that is massive, they had to take the railing down outside our space. They had to take the door off the hinges just to get part of it in and then move it in pieces and reset it up. There were people from mechanical people we had to call, HVAC, all kinds of venting, all of that had to be done. And all of those plans had to be to the building permit department before we could do any of that. And so even though you might have a built-in kitchen, that's really nice. It did help cut some corners, but when you're putting in the kind of bakery, and I'm really kind of thinking here too about Jess and Jake, being in an area that this is wanted, people want this, customers want this. They're like, oh, we've been waiting for something like this. But for you to do it as you're coming in as the person that goes, okay, I know a little bit about this, but man, you are a lone duck. You're having to tell everybody, well, no, this is what this does. And this is why it has to be here. And it's got to be attached to a water source here. And so it's a lot of education for the people you're working with, the contractors. And so there's a lot more that held us up for quite a while, just getting everybody to understand and get the blueprints right and everything.
Yeah, for sure. And there's not, unless you know somebody who's going to sort of shepherd you through the process a little bit. It's a lot of funky European equipment that may or may not still have representation or parts. It's a lot of unknowns. And that's probably why, sort of putting in some industry time, will help you. If you already sort of been around the block a couple times and you know the rep for your oven brand, or know, just know some people, because it's we joke like, I've been in Boulder since '94. We were contemplating a move out of Colorado, and somebody pointed out, they're like, "Man, you got a guy for everything. You got a guy for that. I got a guy for that. You got a gal for this. You get the plumber, you get the electrician, you get the guy who understands the airflow requirement for HVAC." And it was actually one of the things that made me rethink, a relocation out of the state, because it takes a long time to build those relationships of all the folks that support you, right? So when you start from scratch, man, it's tough. Ismael, you got anything to say out there in Denver, Colorado?
Yeah, it's been a long day, by the way. I don't know if I can put ideas together, as many of you may, right? Yeah, Matt's like, yeah, same. Anyway, yes, I would like to add to this whole conversation, not changing the subject dramatically, but kinda. For me, I think I've been hearing from all of you. I've been the luckiest one, because I happened to stumble upon this place that was available, and it was already a bakery. So we had a deck oven in it. We had convections oven in it. I just had to, by the way, I had no money to put into any equipment. So I got really lucky. So I knew how to make stuff, and I had no money. I always said I was the luckiest baker ever. I used my credit card and bought a sheeter, used my credit card and bought a mixer, and so on. The little miscellaneous things you need to make stuff happen. But for me, and maybe you can relate now, if you've been able to open a brick and mortar, I started to feel the anxiety of not having, that money, or that, muscle to be able to pay employees, or to, especially being in Denver, rent is really high. I wanted to be able to pay my people well, but then we just, the place where we're at is kind of odd. We're in the middle of Denver, but it's the place where we're at it was very, very much dead. No one would come to us when we just started. So I started to feel the anxiety of like how to make this happen, how to make ends meet at the end of the month, how to pay my people. So one of the things I did was reaching out to some of the schools, and I think Andy does take some of the interns from the schools as well. So that helps you go through like the very beginning, the start, where you can only afford interns, and that helps you go through that first, few months, maybe the first year, you don't have the sales to support it. One of the things I heard from one of you guys was, just put your head down, drive the 400 miles a day, because seems to be the only way you can make it. And I feel like that pretty much that's the spirit behind being a baker. Putting your head down, being humble, and just working your ass off. Pretty much, it sounds like that's the only way. It's the stamina that requires from any of us to be a baker. It's it's really high. I admire anyone that's not in their 20s or 30s that want to not only become a baker, but become a baker owner, because it requires so much. Like many of you guys, I personally spend 16 hours at the bakery every single day, maybe 7 days a week. And yes, we do a lot of wholesale. We serve about 6 or 7 coffee shops every morning. We serve about 6 or 7 restaurants every morning. And we gotten to a point where we're able to build a team that is proud of what they do. That's going to be especially important for when you grow, having a team that it's proud of the place they work at and the quality and the stuff they're putting into. I think one of the places I saw that, and again, I'm a big admirer of Andy because he's done a great job with their team. I see the employee retention he has is amazing. For me, that was a big struggle in the very beginning, and it probably had to do a lot with the fact of me having this anxiety of making ends meet. So I was putting a lot of pressure into the team. You got to understand that they're not business owners. They are just trying to, get paid and then make the stuff they care about. So yeah, put your head down, work your ass off, make sure you understand you work for the team, you work for your customers, and maybe at the end of the day, you have some time for yourself. I got to a point right now, this is almost 4 years of us being open as a brick and mortar, that I feel, I feel fine. We're in a good spot. We know every month we're making ends meet and we're good. We can grow. Actually, right now we outgrown our space. Last time Andy came to the bakery, we had like the bakery plus this empty space nearby where we're just storing pallets of flour and all sorts of dry goods. So it's pretty amazing. I think one of the things, if I have to conclude, is that the demand is there. People are looking for what we make. People want what we make. When I started, I have a massive deck oven, bigger than maybe a lot of bread ovens you might see. And we can put out thousands of loaves if we want. But I will bake 30 or 40 loaves, I wouldn't sell them. Right now, I guess it had to do a little bit with the influence of the pandemic and people learning about sourdough and learning about the benefits of it, and just being bored at home and just learning about it. The demand for it has increased, and we have to take advantage of that, let people know, spread the word, and just again put our head down and work for it. We're doing something that I said so many times. This is a dying art. What we do, we're just not too many of us still exist in the world, and even in like the capitals of bread in the world, there's not too many of us. So yeah, that's why this is I consider a big honor just to be talking to so many of us crazy people.
Awesome, man. I mean, I have a couple things that came up for me when you were speaking quite eloquently for being sleepy, I might add. The culture that I see in your staff when I go down there is really inspiring. And I see, your bakers and baristas, who I think maybe are the same people, really digging into their craft, and it's, we're down there with, who's the muscly guy from Spain?
Yeah, sometimes we bring interns from other countries. They come to learn. Jorge.
Jorge, talking to Jorge about, the starter for the panettone and the dough strength for the India Jamu we were testing, and noticing your other bakers just really wanting to be a part of that conversation and being curious. So, I mean, you're doing it right, and there's inspiration. And I remember with Matt, we were on a walk one time up in Estes Park. We were talking about, I think it was Bread Lab stuff and whole grains and taking our pastries in a healthier direction. And we were just like geeking out in the dark, walking on a trail with we were on a staff retreat. And I remember waking up next morning being like, God, I'm so happy that I'm surrounded by people like this, So it's all about the people at the end of the day, right? The other thing that really struck me in your comments is something I've seen in the past 5 or so years, which is there is this huge, need and call for community bakeries, whether they're Cottage Foods Act bakeries or big bakeries or little bakeries. I feel like if you can make it through the journey of, thinking of a bakery, opening a bakery, financing a bakery, surviving the first 6-12 months, and you play your cards right, you pick the right location in the right town. In America, this is a beautiful time to be a corner craft baker. So, but it ain't easy, and I think anybody who's had a child before with a midwife or without a midwife, when you talk to young people and you're like, oh, you're going to have a baby? Have you picked a midwife? Like you're going to need help, like it's really not that hard or difficult. It's been going on for a long time, but having a baby is a big deal, and get all the help you can and think about it and make sure you're ready for it. Right. So, cool. I'm going to roll into our next question here, which I think a lot of folks have touched on already. So in consideration of your menu and your offerings, how did the community play a part in the community feedback? I've heard a lot of people say, Ismail, you just said, make the food your customers want, or something along those lines, right? So I'll put that out there to anybody who wants to jump on.
I'd like to jump on that. I'm completely passionate about feeding people. Completely agree that it's a huge, sorry, I'm a little tired. It's a huge opportunity to feed people well. And we take that very seriously at the bakery and at our bakery. And it's been really exciting to offer sourdough pastry, croissants, cinnamon rolls, whatever we're offering, to have that fermentation process, to have that digestibility, the low gluten, to have all of that kind of thing. But to have people come in and go, oh, it's beautiful, and I want to have some, and I can have some, and that's all great. But there's another higher echelon when you get doctors and registered dietitians that are sending their patients your way because your bread is low glycemic, because your bread is low gluten, because you're willing to stand there. And, we we give away as much knowledge as we do bread. And, people come in and that's what they want to do. They want to talk bread. And so what happens is, and they want to talk gluten and they want to talk certain grains. And it's really exciting for us. It's been exciting for my team to learn. We have books sitting all around our space. We've got Vanessa Kimball, and we've got Tim Spector, and we've got John Duyard, and we've got all kinds of books for people to constantly gather information so that they can speak efficiently with our customer base. And, so it's just super duper exciting to see our customers get really excited about what we're offering. We have one gentleman that comes in every single day. He has tried every single thing that we offer. He gets back on Facebook and he tells everybody about it. And he says, my cholesterol is down. I'm not eating the stuff at the grocery store anymore. This bread is fresh every day. And he is like totally just knocking it out of the ballpark. And I just curious one day, he sent me a friend request. So I got on there and I was just kind of sending him a little thumbs up, and everything. And he had like, I don't know how many people on that thread writing in going, where's it at? I got to get over there. I mean, he's just, word of mouth has been huge for us. And so it's totally flavored our menu, what we offer. We offer certain days of the week, certain breads, so people know they can always get their favorite kind of bread on that certain day of the week. We have taken all of our menu items and incorporated sourdough into them. So, I love Sarah Owens. I follow her. I think she's awesome. I've got several of her books. But the sourdough cookies, the sourdough brownies, the sourdough English muffins, bagels, coffee cakes, people come in and they go, oh, well, they look around and they go, what of these things has sourdough in it? And we go, everything. Mm-hmm. And, for us, that's what we do. I mean, there are other bakers that use a little yeast and that's fine. That's their deal. It's not our deal. And we've become this really cool spot where we can feed well, we can nourish well, and at the same time have that little bit of sugar on the side. And I've cried with customers because they've been so happy. They come in and they go, you don't have any idea. It's been years since I've eaten bread. And then we share with them the books and we share with them who to look into and who to read about. And there's a renaissance in sourdough right now. There's a real awakening of people coming to what this is and why we should get back to it. And it's exciting to be a part of that and to share that. I see a lot of head nodding out there.
Yeah, well, hallelujah.
Yeah, we're quite personally passionate about eating well. Honestly, we cook everything from scratch at home. All of our meals are whole foods that we cook ourselves. The ability to add some good, nourishing food to someone else's diet who might not have access to it, or they just don't know about it. When it comes to our menu, I mean, well, we're switching over to full whole grain, but it's really an opportunity, especially at the farmer's market or any other time you're with your customer, to educate. It's a huge opportunity to educate. And just like what you were saying, there's a lot of interest, and I have long conversations that I need to cut off because I have a line at the farmer's market and I got to get to the next customer,
Yeah, I would say we kind of split the difference between what our customers want and what we want to make, partially because we believe in health so much. We live in an area where people would love a great big giant sticky bun the size of your face. Yeah. But I don't want to make that. So it has been a little bit of a challenge of of course people love sugar and big gooey sticky things made with a lot of white flour, but I also generally don't make things that I don't like to eat personally. So maybe that's hurt us. Maybe it'll help us in the end. But I think over the past 4 to 5 years, we've had customers, fall in love with our bread. And, I used to have fair amount of white flour, organic and everything, but I've slowly been changing it over the years. And because our customers, really love our products, they've kind of come along with us on that journey. And I think that's been very interesting and kind of funny to sneak in a lot more whole grain for people who, normally wouldn't choose that themselves, but now they trust us. And I think that's a really, it's an honor sort of to still have all these customers over the years. And, maybe they know that they're eating more whole grain. Maybe they don't really realize it, but either way, it's really neat. I like it.
And that's really part of the beauty of having powerful connections with your customer base, is that they follow you down weird little roads. I'm not calling whole wheat a weird little road. I'm just saying, you can migrate, and Tartine did this in San Francisco. They migrated from, primarily white flour to ultra fine whole wheat that had been slightly sifted, and they never told anybody. And I believe they're still in that space where many of their breads are type 95 flour. They are delicious. And they didn't tell anybody, everybody just trusted Tartine, rightfully so. So and then there's that responsibility, right? Where, how do you sneak more nutrition into the food? How do you change the cookies to be sweetened with honey rather than sugar, made with whole grain rather than white flour? And it's our responsibility as bakers, as good bakers, to make better bread, make better food that is as a greater allure to kids and people who are used to eating out of 7-Elevens. Why would I buy some hippie loaf? It's like, well, here, try it. And they're like, whoa, well, dang, that tastes good. So we got about 10 minutes left, and I wanted to open up for general comments. This is sort of a big topic to cram into 90 minutes, but if anybody has anything they think would be a beneficial share, have at it. Also, I'm going to play country songs for the next 9 minutes.
I'll add, just kind of piggybacking on what you were talking about, Andy, about sneaking whole grains into things and changing out recipes. I think having like the more recent access to different varieties of wheat and having like the grain chain kind of be completed in Colorado has been super helpful for us, because we're not just buying King Arthur whole wheat anymore, stuff that's super, super brown, a little bit like gritty. I get to use like Tyler and April Wilbanks's spelt, and I can throw it in almost anything, and no one knows that the muffin that they're eating is like super high in whole wheat. The flavor is great, and because of its kind of natural baking characteristics, it works. It works in muffins, scones. I have it in all of our pastries. It rocks. And I wouldn't have access to that if like we hadn't been doing like things like this and grain school and the mill site, everything. So I think that's something to take advantage of.
I think it's kind of fun to educate people about different kinds of grain, different kinds of wheat. People don't know. We pulled out one of our coffee cakes a while back and cut it into quarters and put it on the sample board. We sampled pretty much everything. And to the customer, it looked like it was made out of white flour, but it was actually freshly milled Sonora. And it's beautiful. And we use it in a lot of and spelt. We use those in a lot of our pastry. And so it's a beautiful thing to be able to educate your customers on. You can use this for this, you can use this kind for this, you can jump over to this, and I remember one day at the farmer's market, I had a really lovely little gal that worked with us who was from France. And I had a little bit of an interaction with the customer, and the customer left, and I turned around and I looked at Isabel and I said, I know the customer is always supposed to be right, and she stopped me and she said, they're not right. They're not you. They don't know what you know. You share with them what you know. You teach them what you know. They're not right. And I needed that kind of boldness. I needed that, those words that day to say, you know what? We can always treat them like they are our guest. We can always embrace them and give them the very best that we can. But they don't know what we know. We need to give them that knowledge. And I think people are hungry for it.
I'm pretty sure in French, there's not even a word for the customers, right? But maybe I'm wrong. Is that Mika out there?
I think we have Mika. Yeah, go ahead.
Mika has her hand raised. I'd like to call on Mika.
Hi. Thank you for calling on me. First off, I just want to say thank you so much for sharing all of your experiences with this. And it's really touching to hear how you've used your bakery as a learning space and a representative space for educating people about the benefits of eating whole grains and the diversity behind all of these different grains that people have grown for centuries and what's to come. I posted a question in the chat, but I want to change my question because this is something that you guys were talking about a little earlier about how intense being a baker is. And I get it. It's really draining, and there's a lot of pressure to make good bread. And I've also noticed that bakers are perfectionists to a certain degree. And so what you want to give to the public is this beautiful loaf, but you also want to provide nutrition, right? And it's an added bonus if you're ability to do that. And it's also beautiful and satisfying and such an addicting process. But there are certain demands in that you have to produce a certain amount every day in order to remain profitable. And I was just wondering, because this has been on my mind lately, about opening up your own bakery and how burnout is a big part of that. And with burnout comes diminished creativity over time as well. So I was just wondering, how do you maintain a healthy work environment, or how do you boost morale within your own employees who you're working with, and navigating issues like mental health or burnout and all of that? And if you could share maybe just a few like positives behind that, I'd really be curious to hear what your opinions are. Thanks.
Nitro cold brew, right, Ismail? Is it nitro cold brew or espresso? I can't remember. One of those things the doctor said to do a lot of, and everything will be okay.
Sounds about right.
Espresso.
I'm figuring it out.
You own an espresso machine last I checked.
Yeah. I don't have a great answer for that question, to be honest. I have almost no personal life. maybe one of the guys with more experience can speak more about this.
I don't feel like I have a ton of experience because our bakery here has only been open like 4 months.
Okay.
We did have a team in Hawaii as well. I don't really have much of a social life either. I come in at about 2 a.m. and I'm still here. But I love what I do. And I know that we have really tried to match employees to do a job that they feel connected to, that they feel is their own expression, that they can be proud of and enjoy what they do. So we have a team of artisans that come in and in their own way, we've got a gal that's really a neat graphic artist, but she's amazing with the Pop-Tart line because she's so clean with her pie lines. I mean, she's just beautiful that way, and she does such a great job. And so she feels connected. It's an extension of herself. And she also did our menu. And, so she's being able to create and to learn baking at the same time. And so I would say match your people to something where they feel like they have their own, involvement, and they feel very attached to it and they can connect to it on a level. I've got people up front that love talking to the public, and they're sweet, and they're hungry for information and hungry to share that information. And then I have a beautiful baker from Romania who brings a lot of her own experience and knowledge, and we just incorporate that in, and it becomes a team effort, and it's like a tapestry of what this one does goes with this one, and so like I said, here we've only been open like 4 months, but it's been a really neat experiment in, here we have this project we're coming into, who wants to be involved with it, who has vision or ideas for it, and then that person comes in and maybe somebody else, and like that.
Yeah, I would add from my perspective too, that there's stages of a bakery opening. There's the first month, there's the first 6 months, there's the first year, and it's almost like crossing a river in a covered wagon in the old days, right? You go through the river. That river is your opening, let's say 3 to 4 months of opening bakery, and your horses are pulling your wagon through the river, and you haul ass. You don't stop in the middle of the river. You don't slow down. You go, yeah, and you just charge to make it to the other riverbank. And if you're lucky, you have experience and you didn't pack too much crap, you make it to the other edge of the riverbank. And by that point, you want to start onboarding help, maybe distributing some of the wealth that hopefully you've acquired in terms of raises. You want to give some of the folks who have indicated and shown that they're ready to advance. You want to make sure you get in on the early side of like, hey, buddy, I've noticed you've been really throwing down for 4 months right by my side, and I'm the owner, and I can't expect anybody to really give half as much of a dang as I do. But man, you kind of did, let me give you a raise. I'm going to give you a title, and and you mentor them and you bring them on board. And if you can do that quickly enough and get out of that river of pure and utter muddy, fast moving chaos, then you can start to get back into that sort of less of a get shit done phase and more of a creative phase. And, if you've layered on a sound financial advisor who can help you with the books and look at, are there items that you're making that are blowing your margin? Is there folks on your team or is there stuff that's blowing up your labor? Is it the harder you work, the more you get in the hole type situation? Well, there are bookkeepers and financial advisors and friends who can help you evaluate that, because that's a bad scene right there. It's never going to get better. Pricing in the pandemic has such an elasticity that if you're not making money and you're doing a sound business, you can just do price increases. And this may not be true in every nook and cranny out there, but I can tell you in many places, if you provide a good service and a high quality baked good, and you need to transfer your 25% food cost increase between butter and flour and whatever else, you just do a price increase and make sure that you're whole. So listen, guys, we're at 6:03. I want to be mindful of everybody's time. I feel like this could be potentially a follow-up conversation. If anybody wanted to, we're all in email and there's folks on chat. If anybody wanted to throw any more questions, Mika, we didn't really totally unpack your question. We host our monthly Colorado Grain Chain Grain Homeschools, and I would love to invite this group back. Maybe we could swap out some folks if people need to sleep in a month and share some more stories. But I really appreciate the time and the love and the effort and all the work that you guys are doing. I'm in complete honor to be here with you guys tonight. So thank you.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, guys.
Yeah. Thanks, everyone. This is a really wonderful conversation, and I think a lot of connection amongst many people, and learning is of the essence. And I can only say, in the grain chain, I think these long hours, bakers have long hours, farmers have long hours, millers have long hours. We work a lot, but we love what we do, and I think that just speaks for the passion that young people are going to feel. And that's where one change matters. Every single person that grabs that whole grain, wonderful loaf made with Colorado grown grain or a regional concoction made with love by you is going to be a success story. So take those rewards and pat yourself on the shoulders, hold yourself too, and take some time. But it's a lot of work, but it's just, we have one life and it's worth it to do this work. So we thank you because we love to eat bread and learn from you. And we're glad that maybe there are more Colorado Grain Chain members here. So in the chat, I'm just going to put our marketing video, share it. This is something hot off the press that we wanted to push out, that more people are becoming aware of Colorado grown grains and the Colorado Grain Chain and all that, this community brings with it. It certainly enhances my life every single day. And so I thank you. And I cannot wait to come and meet you, and I cannot wait to join the San Luis Valley team there. And I hope that many of you will join Grain School in the Field July 23rd to 24th. So for those that are in course 3 and have not learned about navigation around the course on Canvas, please stay on and we'll quickly take you through the course. Sorry that we're going over. I want to thank Andy very much for moderating this and just putting a heart and soul into the cause, and also Hannah, who was helpful in bringing you all together. So thanks a lot, and have a wonderful evening, and drink a beer with bread.
One quick thing before we all go guzzle beer. I already drank one. Local beer, supporting my local maltster. So the Colorado Grain Chain is reaching out to be in farmers markets this season, and so I know some of you guys are in your local market. If anybody would like to be sort of an ambassador and get some of our collateral, maybe speak a little bit to what the Colorado Grain Chain does, we would love to get your help. There's a lot of distance to cover in the state, and we can't do it on our own. So please let me know. Everybody knows how to find me via email. If maybe you'd be up for it, we could probably help with a little stipend here or there. And it doesn't have to be an arduous lift. It's simply some brochures, some of these conversations that Jake has every time he's interacting with the customer, and the rest of you. So let me know.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Yeah, thank you, everyone. Any other comments, questions? Hang on if you're in course 3.
Anna, this is the official ending. Hold on.
Okay.
That's it. That's the gavel. Thanks, everybody. Good night.
Thank you. Good night. Thank you very much.